to hear you talk as well. So this is over to you.
Thank you very much, Hemant, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I want to first of all say congratulations for graduating. It's been a very difficult year and a half for all of us, and I've also been studying during the pandemic, so I know how it feels and the challenges of trying to juggle studying and work and family whilst being surrounded by this chaos and craziness. What I did want to do is really show you something simple. I wanted to fill your minds with the potential of what you are doing and the opportunities going forward. Communications is a very, very exciting industry to be in. It's a very exciting function, and we really literally have the world at our feet going forward. I think in many ways the pandemic has actually shown the power of effective communications to help people get through this, to even save lives, quite literally. It's an example for me of the positivity that comes out of what we do, the reasons why we do it, and really just give you a taster of what is to come in terms of what you can be doing. So let me share this with you. So just give me 1 second. Of course, I've got to do my Zoom screen sharing. Of course, I need to share sound as well. So you should be able to see that. And I always take my inspiration from what is happening around me, everywhere else in the world. And the best place to do that is Cannes, to see really the work which is being put out and the thinking behind it. And for me, the best campaigns, the best work, communications is always at the heart, and there's a communicator behind every big marketing media idea, which is about purpose. It's about sustainability, about the environment, it's about health. So I just want to show you some concepts, some really simple videos that will help you in terms of understanding what is going on and what you can do. So let's jump in. So first of all, it's the issue of purpose. Purpose is talked about a lot, but it's really hard to try and understand what purpose is all about. So rather than me talking about it, I want to show you some videos to really get you excited. And if the video doesn't play or the sound doesn't play, please do let me know.
Although I have cerebral palsy, I do everything I can to conduct myself like everyone else. But in my own home, I'm surrounded with furniture crying out, "Cripple." I'd like to sit on a regular sofa without being afraid I won't be able to get up.
IKEA's vision is to create a better everyday life for the many. This enables give simple and affordable home furnishings for 10% of the population.
Every child, every person is different depending on their needs.
Disability drives innovation.
Even in some of our public libraries, there's 3D printers.
A lot of the solutions. They've been very medicalized down through the years, and nothing as cool as anything you've produced.
ועכשיו אנחנו רוצים להראות לכם יוזמה מיוחדת של רשת איקאה שנקראת Disable.
יוזמה חשובה שתקל על אנשים עם מוגבלויות. איקאה, עם ארגון נגישות.
So I am going to be calling on you all to share your opinion. First of all, before I go on, any thoughts, many of you, in terms of that video and the purpose behind it and the communications as well? Any thoughts? You can mute yourself as you want. It's okay, up to you.
Hi, Alex. I'm Saurav.
Hi,
I
Saurav.
think idea behind the making that, and I even loved the way that was presented in this video. I think it was a step-by-step procedure showing the problem they face and the solution what IKEA has brought to them. I loved it.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, it's IKEA, you know, in terms of bringing furniture to the masses and extending it to a new audience, but also as well, you know, democratizing probably is the wrong word, but making things more accessible to people who didn't have access beforehand. So yeah, it's spot on. So I'm going to just share a couple of concepts with you. What we're increasingly seeing in terms of comms campaigns, purpose, it's really holistic, and that's what we're seeing. Our engagement is all about. We want to help our organizations understand and better communicate that purpose. What we're increasingly doing as well through communications is engaging new audiences, and we're using innovation, we're using technology to break down barriers. So what I also want to do is ask you some questions as well. So let me put these to you. You can answer them now if you like, or you can think about it later on. So, you know, if you were going to do this for any organization or company, what would you want to focus your purpose on, and how do you transform what may be an ordinary product to something that can really change people's lives? Any thoughts on that one? Because that would be really interesting to see from a young person's perspective, what purpose can be all about.
Would you like us to say something? Respond to that?
Yes, please. If you'd like to participate, yeah, I'd love to see that.
Alex, I'm Chizuk. And I think the first thing I think about when you posed the question was, you know, I was thinking of the idea of making something unique for the individual. You know, I think especially when we look at the ordinary person, the things that make us unique are the things that are different from other people. So how are we able to make something that's a campaign that spans across a large group of audience, yet so is also personal to that individual? So I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for, but
no, that's great for me. You know, the thing is, what I always say about communications is there is no one right answer. You know, there are different ways of doing things. There's different ways of engaging, different ways of seeing things. Everybody has their own unique perspective, and you know, each one of us shapes perspectives through our experiences, through our beliefs, through our culture, and different reasoning. So yeah, thank you for that. Good insight. Anybody else? I am going to get more of you to join in, because this is what I love. I love participation. But let me then move on and look at the concept of brand love, because also, you know, we are the ones who very much are driving this. We're driving engagement. We're driving people really to think about what our brands are all about and how we contribute to society. It's very, very similar to purpose, but it's slightly different in terms of how it's understood. So let me now show you this concept from Brazil. Brazil has one love, which many of you may know. So let me play this for you.
With over 50% of Brazilian drivers admitting to using their phones while driving, many still think of it as an inconsequential act and turn a deaf ear to the usual awareness campaigns. So how could Uber get the country's attention and promote for roads for its drivers and passengers? Well, this is Brazil. To promote Traffic Safety Month, Yellow May, Uber partnered with Brazilian A-Series team Atletico. And unbeknownst to even his teammates, goalkeeper Santos agreed to literally carry the problem onto the field. And just as the match was about to start, the player responsible for the team's safety fidgeted around on his phone, driving fans and the media crazy.
Gente, esse cara ficou louco. É ato até irresponsável. Absolutamente descabida. Tem torcedora que tá indignada.
The scene took over social media during the game, becoming a meme of inappropriate mobile use. It dominated the evening's sports roundtables with a combined 2.5 hours of on-air discussion. It crossed over to mainstream news, being featured in Brazil's highest-rated TV show.
Tá mexendo no celular.
And soon, going global. Amid the controversy and speculation, the country wanted answers.
Olha, vai ficar muito chato se o goleiro não vier a público explicar essa situação.
Glad you asked.
Ficaria indignado também com a atitude de levar o celular para o campo. E essa indignação minha é em relação também ao celular no carro.
At the press conference, the keeper revealed that it was all a campaign by Uber and introduced a video about the dangers of mobiles in traffic, sparking a new round of coverage. By bringing the issue to the place where Brazilians don't tolerate distractions, we reminded them of much higher stakes.
Ele ali poderia levar gol, mas você pode perder a vida.
Ele tava pedindo Uber depois para sair no final.
Okay, before we jump to the next one, any thoughts, any ideas on that one? Brand love, great campaign. Uber football, obviously, Uber's all about traveling. It's all about traveling in cars, and that obviously relates to safety on the roads. But if you notice, the whole conversation was really driven by PR. It wasn't driven by any other media. So, what are your thoughts here? What did you find interesting?
I found personally the campaign really very interesting. I loved how they combined, even like they could have just made a campaign with Uber telling people not to drive with using phones, but they again connected it with one common sentiment that everyone shares in Brazil, that was football. So I think they brought out that really well, and yeah, it was actually a very interesting campaign. And also they know that how nowadays on social media memes catch up very soon as the event happened. So they didn't reveal it right after the event. They took some time for for people to absorb it and make memes on it, talk about it, start a conversation, and then they talk about it. So I really like the approach.
Thank you, Sanika. Thank you. Anybody else?
I think direct communication about not using cell phones while driving has been done a lot. But using this method of actually gaining public attention by collaborating with Yellow May, I think that created a huge stir because people are so the emotions are attached towards football, and something wrong was happening there, and people got really agitated and irritated with the fact that why are they doing something wrong? Why is he not focusing on the game? And then giving it proper time and letting the emotions stir up, and then the player coming up and telling in the press conference that this is how I feel when you guys use phones while driving, so take action for your responsibility. So the way they actually communicated why it is important to be responsible irrespective of where you are and what you're doing, like taking all the safety precautions accordingly, I think that message was communicated well.
can I ask you a question? Would you or could you see this being done in India with cricket? Do you think it would create the same levels of outrage?
Sorry, I didn't get you. Sorry.
Could you see this being done in India with cricket? Would it cause the same level of outrage?
I think it would have been a wildfire. It's an understatement. I think it would be greater than a wildfire.
Yeah, I can imagine as well. Especially, I think Indians feel more passionate about cricket than Indians do about soccer. So
Totally.
yeah. So, looking at it, what we're often asked to do as communicators is how do we tap into people's emotions? How do we understand what drives them, what they care about, and then how does that obviously reflect on the message? And the best campaigns are the ones which really bring together the messaging of the company and connect it with that passion and effectively what is an obsession in many cases. So again, the questions I'd put to you are, when you are going to be sort of moving in your career, you've got to think always about your stakeholders and what they care about, what they're passionate about, and then try to understand how can you link this into what your organization is doing and the organization's brand equity, and try and find effectively the connection between the two. So there are two elements. Now, the third one, which is becoming increasingly important, is the issue of sustainability. Sustainability is a huge issue, and it's going to become even more important, even more necessary given the issues that we are facing. You will know, for example, the SDGs. You will know what companies are doing to tackle issues around, for example, the environment, around development, renewable energy, etc. And what we are seeing is more campaigns which are trying to tap into this and try to make us take action. I'm going to play you one video. This is from the Middle East. It's very moving, but it'll give you a sense of what we're going to be seeing more of.
More than 3,000 child brides were married off this year in Lebanon, an ugly tradition exacerbated by Lebanese expats who come back home just to pick a young bride. And however horrific, this tradition is actually legal. And so RDFL, a gender equality NGO, gave up on campaigning and decided to embrace the tradition too. If Lebanese expats wanted a young bride, we were going to give them a young bride. Introducing YoungArus.com, the first e-matrimonial child bride agency. Profiles of underage girls filled the pages of our website and were spread on our social media pages. In less than a month, they had attracted over 5,000 people, mostly expatriates. And for those unfamiliar with e-commerce, we offered our child brides in a mall. The country was outraged. The police shut down the social media accounts. The people on the booth were taken into questioning.
بالفعل انه بعد المجتمع اللبناني ما عنده مشكله يتصل تيتزوج بنت قاصر.
Media went crazy and the best talk show in town took the lead in exposing the tradition for what it really.
نحن نقلنا الجو اللي عم بيصير على ارض الواقع يوميا.
حولنا لتجربه اجتماعيه.
And for all the outrage, the most outrageous part was that this was perfectly legal and that most of the girls on offer were either dead or had suffered traumatic injuries because they were too young to bear children. By the end of the campaign, since we had them in our database, we had the signature of 2,942 future grooms of young brides pledging to stop this ugly tradition.
And then, thousands of activists, alongside lawmakers and MPs, took to the streets demanding for the early marriage law to pass. As a result, the law found its way back to Parliament, awaiting to be put on the schedule of an upcoming hearing.
Now, before I go on, any thoughts from any of you?
Actually, I kind of felt that, it's more kind of a moment, Branson coming and taking the roles of an activist to address the social cause that concerning everybody. This is actually, I would say that, this is something new information for me, but I really kind of touched to me. I think that's the success of a campaign, right?
My opinion would be that it was a very extreme measure that was taken to bring out the actual sense of it. And individually, I feel that going so in depth to touching an emotion might backfire a lot of times.
It's a tough one, looking at big issues. We don't often see movement until people feel strongly on an issue, and this is a challenge. How much do you push? How much do you try and change traditions? How much do you try and change culture? And I used to work at P&G, and I know some of the campaigns they've done, for example, Touch the Pickle, have been focused on societal issues in India. So it is difficult, but we are going to see a lot more activism. We're already seeing it in many parts of the world, and we are going to see this pickup. And the question which we've got to ask ourselves in terms of brands is this. You have these causes, you have these big issues, and increasingly what charities are doing, and also as well brands are doing, is they're partnering together to try and push for change. Now, when you get it right, you can affect a significant amount of change, and you can really change society for good. It's never easy. There is often resistance. There are societal issues to confront, but brands are increasingly being asked to take a part in societal development because of many issues. Possibly a lack of trust in politicians. Politicians are increasingly divisive. You get people who are either loved or hated, and brands are being turned towards by society. We saw this, for example, in the US after Black Lives Matter. So the questions we've got to ask ourselves is, what are the issues you think that brands should be engaged in? And then, what story do you tell around that? And how do you try and create a story which is going to hopefully lead to change? Now, the next big thing is obviously technology. Technology really is changing everything in the industry. It's changing how we communicate. I'm old enough to know when we used to get faxes, press releases, we used to use floppy disks. It just doesn't happen anymore. Okay, but it really does allow for a lot more to be done in terms of the communications arena. I'm going to play you this campaign from the US from one of my favorite fast food chains for their advertising. I will admit. So let me play you this.
Let's now talk Fortnite, shall we? It's the newest video game craze, spreading fast among kids, college kids, even celebrities.
Kids are nuts for this Fortnite.
Fortnite has taken over the gaming world, becoming the most streamed game on Twitch ever. But brands are left out of the action, either tweeting from the sidelines or paying big bucks for in-game sponsorships. So when Fortnite announced a new event called Food Fight between Team Pizza and Team Burger, Wendy's saw an organic weigh-in. We found out Team Burger stored their beef in freezers. And Wendy's doesn't do frozen beef. So we got on Twitch, chose a character with red hair and pigtails, dropped into the game, and instead of killing other players, we started destroying burger freezers. Again and again and again. For 9 hours straight. We also declared our mission on Twitter, sending hundreds of thousands of gamers to Twitch to watch us play. And soon other players stopped killing each other and started killing burger freezers with us.
Hey, Wendy's, dude, let's go! Oh!
Top Twitch streamers took notice.
I saw a Wendy's stream over here, dude.
Oh, you smacking the burgers freezers?
This shit's lit. Bro, this kind of stuff keeps the game fresh.
Thank you so much for coming to the stream, Wendy.
News outlets were talking about it. Even Twitch posted a highlight reel of Wendy's best freezer kills. Then, our own competitors showed us some respect. But most importantly, the game developers removed the freezers from every burger restaurant. meaning Wendy's had rid Fortnite of frozen beef forever.
So come on, tell me you didn't like that. What do you think of that campaign?
Damn creative and spontaneous actions that they took was amazing.
Anybody else? Anybody play Fortnite here? It's okay, you can admit it. Hey man, your students are far too good. They're far too studious. None of them play Fortnite, but the campaign was great. It was really simple, really creative, and it cost nothing. That was a brilliant thing about it. But it was all about technology. So going in, creating the avatar, which looked like the character, streaming through Twitch, connecting it through social media. It was so fantastic idea. Now let me show you another one, which is similar, but a little bit more political in nature.
He's misspelled everything from hereby to tap my phone.
2 misspellings of the word council.
L-Y-E-N. Donald Trump made history today. Donald Trump today became the first U.S. president ever to congratulate himself on placing a fast food order. He tweeted, "Great being with the national champion Clemson Tigers last night at the White House. Because of the shutdown, I served them massive amounts of fast food. I paid over 1,000 hamburgers." That's right, hamburgers.
Swing the remix god! Burger King jumped in. Due to a large order placed yesterday, we're all out of hamburgers. Just serving hamburgers today.
Burger King made fun of the president. Burger King.
We're all out of hamburgers.
Hamburgers.
The E and the U aren't even near each other on the keyboard. Prepare your Burger Kingdom for a siege. Put the tweet up again for a second. Is it possible he thought they were called hamburgers until today?
Paid for by me. By me. Me. Paid for by me.
President's tweet has now been deleted and retweeted with the spelling error corrected.
Again, tell me guys, any thoughts?
I mean, we're all aware that the U.S. is a really polarized country. We have the Republicans and Democrats, but I feel like, to a certain extent, it could have worked both ways. I don't think that people who support Trump would have necessarily. They might have had a good kick out of it, but they might not fully be angry at Burger King to actually not go there, which is really interesting because I think it was treading that fine line.
Would it have worked anywhere else?
I'm not sure. I don't think so, to be honest. Maybe. No, I don't think so.
Hey guys,
I think it's I have a small point of view on that. I think there needs to be some foundational work already done on these characters for somebody to take a jab at it. For example, in India, there are two sides, political sides. On one side, you just can't joke about the guy. And on the other side, so many jokes have already been made that brands would probably not be afraid at all to take a jab like this. And it's the same case in Trump's case, that he was ridiculed already by people in general and otherwise, that it was easier to do that. So I suppose that context matters.
Yeah, always context matters. That's the key here. And there are some places you could very much do this. You have a receptive audience, you have the right political climate. Something like this would also most likely work in the UK. It would work in a lot of countries, for example, in Europe. Obviously, I could never try and do this sort of stuff in the Middle East. Not if you wanted to connect with me again. So it's interesting, but what is also interesting here is it can be done very quickly. If you are a perceptive communicator and you see what's happening around you and you see the opportunity, and also as well, if you're trusted by your organization and you can jump into it and do it, then you can create real buzz and real engagement, especially if it fits with the brand's ethos and what the brand is all about. So let me go next slide. Just to recap, this is what's fascinating right now. The best communicators understand intimately their audience and what their audience are into, what they're following, what the trends are about. What they also do is they move at speed, and this is not easy. Often, in terms of communications, you'll need to get the buy-in from management. You'll need to speak with marketing. If it's something which may be controversial, will legal see it? So it's difficult. And then you've got to think, how relevant is this to my audience? How quickly can I get it out? So, with that, the questions I'd ask you are, how updated are you in terms of the trends around you, which are happening to the audiences that you care about? And then how fast could you tap into those trends? Could you do it literally in the space of 15 minutes? Could you do it in the space of an hour? Could you do it within the space of a day? So just some thoughts to take with you. Now let's look towards the future. You are the future, so I'm not going to tell you anything which you don't know, but I think just this concept is going to be interesting for you. Who is actually, let me ask you this before I play this video. Who here is on TikTok? Or is anybody here not on TikTok?
TikTok is banned in India.
Of course TikTok is banned in India. I should remember that, of course. It was banned, what was it? I think last year,
Yes.
But before that, were you on TikTok?
I was.
Anybody else? So one out of 12. Anybody else? No. Oh, you guys, you're not as old as me. I'm sure you should be on these platforms. Okay, well, look, I'm going to move past that, but I think the one thing I'd say is technology really does define a lot of how communications is done today, and we're increasingly seeing technology being used to automate. We're seeing artificial intelligence being used to simplify processes, to make sure that, for example, things are done more quickly. And we're even seeing technology used to actually create content. You've seen deepfakes. It is incredibly powerful. So, keep your eye on the pulse in terms of what's happening to technology and think about how you can use it. So we've looked forward. I'm going to look now back. We've obviously gone through a really difficult time over the past 2 years. And what people want to do is connect to a period which is safer, which is full of positive emotions. And that really is all about nostalgia. And I'm going to play you a couple of videos which really tap into that, because we're increasingly seeing it in terms of how we communicate.
All too often in history, women and their contributions to success weren't given the same attention as their male counterparts. 2018 was the year to rewrite these women's history with Stabilo Boss. Highlight the remarkable Edith Wilson, the first lady who assumed her husband's presidential responsibilities after he was paralyzed by a stroke. Highlight the remarkable Katherine Johnson, the NASA mathematician responsible for the calculations resulting in Apollo 11's safe return to Earth. Highlight the remarkable Lise Meitner, discoverer of nuclear fission, whose male partner was awarded with the Nobel Prize. What started as ads turned into a global conversation. Not just in the media, but among millions on social media. People shared and discussed the ads. To date, 4,100 mentions can be counted every day. People even proposed other remarkable women. By adding a new element to the conversation about equality, Stablo has inspired people to change the narrative of history. Highlight the remarkable.
Now, what is fascinating here is you're taking a product which really has no relationship at all with the stories it's telling, but you're using it in a way whereby you weave it in to the narrative, and you focus that brand and that narrative on something which is also very relevant to our time and our conversations, revisiting the past and then discussing it again. What were your thoughts on this? Anybody?
I liked how it did not seem forced at all, like they weren't trying to hop on to the feminist bandwagon or anything. It was just their product and their wordplay that worked really well for them and was really timely.
Thank you. What is also interesting as well is this initially started out as a marketing idea, but it's been taken by communications and then turned into a conversation on social media and on digital. So again, communication is taking an idea and making it stretch and extending it in a way which marketing cannot do. So, if you think about, again, what's happening around us, nostalgia really is powerful. It's really effective, but it taps into people's positive sentiment. And past memories, they make us emotional. They make us think about good times. And what we're increasingly seeing is brands tapping into those memories and insights. Now, what I'd ask you is, how would you like to see nostalgia being used? How would you take thoughts, those good memories, and how could you turn those into a communication concept? And then, with that, do you have stories which you would like to repurpose through a communication angle to talk about the good that, say, a brand is doing? Now, the final piece, this is the big one, and it's all about shock. And it relates very much into some of the other elements, for example, the issue of sustainability. But I'm going to play you a video, and then we can go from there.
All right, so good morning. Welcome to today's team building event. Today, we're going to be learning what to do in the event of an active shooter. We're gonna bring in a special guest. She's actually an expert on this, and she's going to be leading our team building event. Oh my. No. This is Kaylee.
If there was an active shooter, you'd all be dead. When you talk out loud, the shooter can tell where you are and where you're hiding. Sometimes we play the game who can stay quietest the longest, so we all remember. You can try and protect your friends by pushing the tables and chairs against the doors. You also have to put a piece of paper over the door window so they can't see in. And you can't cry. It gives away your position and your hiding spot. And if you're in the bathrooms, you have to stand on the toilet seat and crunch down so they can't see your feet and they can't see your head, so they don't know that you're in there.
That's crazy.
Try to listen for things that could help the police. For example, if you hear a lot of bangs like bang, 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 the shooter might be down the hall. Or if you hear louder ones like bang, 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 he could be right outside your door. If the shooter comes in the room, screaming won't do anything. You have to try and fight back. If you can't escape, we get taught the emergency window escape plan, where you have to break a window, put clothes over the frame, and climb through. Our teacher used to sing a song to make it easy to remember. Lockdown, let's all hide. Lock the doors and stay inside. Crouch on down, don't make a sound, and don't cry or you'll be found.
Now, simple question. Anybody have any thoughts before we go on? I think maybe even a simpler question. How does that make you feel?
I think this was that one point, like, where we needed to know the exact truth right from someone like a child, a kid like her, who would not sugarcoat it, who would say exactly what it is. See, hearing that out from that kid actually helped the purpose to understand what they are going through, what exactly is happening to them. So it was a good way rather than getting someone like a man. I mean, like an elder person here maybe would not have. Maybe I'm not sure, but getting a kid who will speak the raw truth without sugarcoating anything, showing what exactly the real picture is, really helped.
It was really relatable to what their current situation, the reality of the US was. And I bet like that whole shock factor of not really expecting a kid, but knowing as well that, oh wait, this is a kid where so many school shootings have happened. Like, it's bringing a situation that's really real, the country, and realizing that, it's an issue that affects not just them, but a greater aspect of their community.
And also how normalized this fear is, right? Like everyone just heard it for the first time and everyone in awe. But these students are mindful of this fear like every day of their lives because of school shootings. And a child speaking, I think, brought that out really well.
And it's a scary campaign. The thought that a child has to be ready for this. A child who literally should not have anything to think about apart from learning, having fun, just being at school. But the fact that more children die in school from shootings than probably from a number of pretty common diseases in the US just because of this one issue. And increasingly what we're seeing is this concept of shock being used to try and break through, try and change the status quo. And it's becoming easier to do that. The challenge you've got is you can't obviously use it too often, because if you do, people are they become attuned to what you're trying to do, and the shock factor each time becomes less and less effective. So if I look at sort of the concept of comms, what we're doing here is we're really tapping into these big and comfortable issues more and more. Be it this, be it societal issues like Black Lives Matter. It could be also the movement around sexual assault as well. And what they're also trying to do is tell more personal stories, because the more personal the story, the more you cut through. People don't want to hear about a corporate voice. They don't want to hear about a brand talking. They want personal stories here. And then the idea is to try and get people to think about, what they need to do rather than what they are doing. So the question we have is, are there issues that matter to you, your audience? And then, how can you really drive change, through these big issues, through these conversations? Any thoughts on these before I go in? Is there anything that you think could be done in terms of where you are and your own issues? Any thoughts? Is there anything that really drives you, that that sort of makes you angry around you? That would be really interesting to think about.
Hi, this is Rashmi here. I wanted to say initially when we were playing the IKEA ad, I heard the word disability and disable, and I feel like since I have a brother who's a special child, that's how we mention, not a disabled child but a special child. I think that is something that is a matter that I really feel that should change. I mean, in a lot of places there are changes, but still moving it from a disabled child to a special child is really important.
Yeah, I completely understand, and yeah, I empathize with you on that. Okay, so I'm going to summarize everything up now in terms of what we are seeing when it comes to communications, and the idea of looking at purpose, tapping into emotions, thinking about partnerships as well. Obviously, the need to leverage off technology, but also as well the elements of shock. These are all things which are really driving how communications is done today, and will be done over the coming decade or 2 decades. So if you're going to think about anything in terms of your careers and in terms of what you want to do and how you want to do it, these are the concepts that you really need to think about looking forward. You need to think, how do I really leverage these ideas? How do I come up with big concepts which cut through, which really help my stakeholders understand and look at issues from a different perspective? Because the challenge we all have today is there is so much noise, and trying to get people to care is increasingly becoming harder and more difficult. So these elements, if you want to think about what you should be doing moving forward, have these always in mind. And I'll share the deck with you anyway, but really this is what summarizes a good or even a great communicator today. Now with that, I'm going to open up the floor. Any questions you may have, anything at all.
Alex, let me start off with a general question on behalf of the class. So a lot of the ideas that you shared are a great mix of creativity, insights, and a fair bit of courage as well. And this group is more than capable of coming up with these kind of ideas. But in your experience, when youngsters like this group go out into consulting firms and create ideas like this, what do you see are some of the barriers to being able to produce such ideas and being able to present them?
Well, I think the biggest one out of all of them is the issue of trust. You've got to have the trust of your leadership, and that's not always easy. Everybody I've found in my career, everybody thinks they're an expert in communications. Invariably, they're not, but everybody thinks that they know how to communicate. It's funny, like nobody goes out, nobody questions the lawyer, nobody questions, or if they do, then there's obviously an issue. Nobody likewise questions the accountant. But with us, it takes a longer time to build up trust. So trust is one. Trust is a big issue. And with that, you've got to try and often win over people one by one. You've got to create advocates for what you're doing and your work. So that's one idea. And I think the second element, which is really important as well, is trying to do things differently. Communications, I often find that people do tend to have a sort of defined process. They can be very dogmatic in terms of how they do things. But again, the best communicators, they're always looking at new ideas. They're always wanting to challenge things. They're always thinking about how they can call out issues and really push the envelope. Doesn't always work out, but again, it's that bravery, the freedom to try something and not be afraid of it not working as well.
Right. Thanks for that. Over to the students for any questions they may have.
Hi Alex, I'm Sanika. I had a question that when it comes to identifying the target audience, how do you identify it with regard to purpose-driven campaigning? Because with brands like Burger King, they have already identified the audience that they're witty, they like sarcasm, and so the campaigns are revolving around that. Whereas some brands they look into audience insights in general, and they then create a campaign based on that, not particularly only audience that would buy their product, but audience in general, like people in general. So what is the correct way to go about it?
It's an interesting one. If you look at the marketing side, the marketing mix, I'm ex P&G. So they really have their audience well mapped out. Very very focused. They have their prime market, and then they have sort of a wider circle, which is a larger grouping. The prime market would probably drive 80%, then that wider grouping probably would drive 20%, and then you have like an additional circle where maybe have others who could potentially become customers for whatever circumstance. With communications, I think what is interesting, you've got obviously social and digital, which has widely expanded who our audience could be. And then you've also got major issues which could also impact who our stakeholders are. So, for example, if you look at the issue of, say, sustainability, particularly plastic, you could be a company who is based in India, and yet if your product is not disposed of properly, your plastic is not disposed of properly, it could get washed on the Indian Ocean, and it could either end up in Africa or it could end up in Indonesia or even Australia. So that's what I find fascinating today. So our stakeholders, our mapping can change pretty quickly based on our platforms, based on how we communicate, and also as well based on the issues that we are engaging on. And always remember that one of the most important groups that we need to communicate with are our own people, our own employees, our management as well. And I think we often sort of forget about the internal audience that we have to engage with, and they're often the most important because these are the people who become ambassadors for our organizations and for our brands.
I had a question. So, just now you said, purpose-driven communication, trust is very important in purpose-driven communication. So, a couple of months ago, I actually read a report called Edelman's Trust Barometer. And in that report, the report states that there's a growing trust deficit among whatever a brand or a CEO up to, or whatever they're doing in the name of purpose. So my question is that, do you see this growing public cynicism against, purpose-driven campaigns as a threat for brands or communication, for them to communicate or come up with a purpose-driven act?
I think it all comes down to the issue of sincerity. You can look at brands who have been campaigning on a single issue for 15, 20 years. And then you may see brands who jump into a discussion overnight. We're not stupid. We know when people are being sincere. We know when they are committed. And we also know when brands are looking for publicity. So, it's really up to us to try and guide our brands and our organizations to try and do the right thing. We understand this as people. We understand when people are being credible, they're being open and engaging. We also understand when they're being cynical in terms of how they're using an opportunity. Likewise, we've got to do the same with our organizations. The more that obviously the brand is trusted and trusted to the right thing, the more likely you're actually be able to engage on the issue and also hopefully push the issue in a way which is positive. Try it essentially and advocate for a change, for development of that cause, of that issue. So it's, you know, at the end of the day, it's within our hands to try and guide that.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
And you're welcome. Any other questions?
Hi, Alex. I actually had a question that's a bit related to Sanika's question as well, but it's actually because you did mention P&G as well as connecting with the different stakeholders. I wanted to bring up the campaign, like Be the Best, A Best a Man Can Be campaign that Gillette launched, where in a way it was targeted at their audience, right? But it was also a message that I believe it was really important, but I feel like a lot of their consumers may not have taken it so well, which actually led to a drop in their sales. But and then they also, another thing that really bothered me was they kind of like changed the narrative of the whole campaign later on. But like, do you think then like a brand who they directly talked or they directly sent a message to their audience, their target audience, but it was a message that their target audience may not have wanted to listen to. What do you say about that? Do you think that was the right move in their case?
Look, it's a difficult one. I knew the campaign. I understood what they were trying to achieve. It wasn't received in a way which I think the brand foresaw. You could look, for example, also look at Pepsi with Black Lives Matter. You may remember the advert with Kylie Jenner, where she walks up to the police and she gives them a Pepsi can. Really, really badly thought out advert. And the one point I always make to people is this is where the importance of diversity and inclusion comes in to how you view your communications. Because what I often see in communications teams is I see a sameness of thought, where really what we should be doing is arguing these points out and taking on different perspectives to really understand, what our wider audiences are going to be saying about the issue, what they're going to be thinking. So, even brands who may have the best of intentions have really got to think through different views, different perspectives, different concepts, and then really come back and think, okay, is this gonna work for us, or should we try and do something different? We may want to focus on the issue, but should we communicate in a different way, in a different manner? Thank you for the question. Anybody else? Any other questions you have?
Hi, I had another question. So my question was, if our vertical will be starting working soon, and if our vertical isn't exactly social impact, but within our firm, within our brand, we feel that there is scope of a conversation that can be sparked around a product. So how do you initiate that conversation with your teammates? If you have any suggestions on that.
You could, there are different ways you could use data points. It very much depends on the team. If they're data-driven, data points are very useful. Looking at research on your audiences, you could share concepts which have been tried in other markets as well. For example, these simple 2-minute videos, or it simply just could be discussion about an idea which is in your head, and that really depends on, again, your relationship with the team. How much do they trust you? How much are they open to hearing your viewpoints? So there are different ways to do it, but it really depends on who you are engaging with, their character, their relationship with you, etc.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I have a couple of closing questions if the class doesn't have any. The first, Alex, is how do you stay most updated on all the creative and fantastic work that's happening in the world of reputation management. And the second is any parting thoughts, words of wisdom for this class.
So how do I stay engaged? How do I stay inspired? So one is looking at what's happening outside, looking at what other brands are doing, brands that I love, seeing their campaigns, looking at awards like Cannes. There's obviously the campaigns, or the competitions which are run by a number of entities in India, including SCoRe as well. There's so much good work out there, and I think if you look, you will see inspiring ideas, you'll see great execution, and you'll see really brilliant results. So keep looking, keep curious, and you'll find something which inspires you, and you'll have that idea in your head whereby you think, yeah, this could work, for what I'm doing. So that's one. I think in terms of final thoughts, just to repeat what I said at the beginning, we've seen the best of communications, I think, over the past 18 months to 2 years. We have literally been the difference in terms of how organizations fare, how people fare as well. We've helped organizations adapt to the crisis. And this is a crisis unlike any other crisis, which is just going on and on and on. We've helped to keep people safe. We've helped to, sort of talk about issues, for example, such as mental health as well. So there's so many things which are positive for our profession and our industry in terms of our leadership. Now, the issue is, how do we keep that going? How do we keep the focus on what we can do and the value that we bring? And really, it's up to many of you. You are the future of the profession, and you are going to be the leaders in the profession as well. So, take inspiration from what you see around you, and keep on pushing the boundaries in terms of what can and what should be done with the profession.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Alex. Thanks again for joining us. I'm sure the students will, once they graduate, they will get in touch with you on LinkedIn and Twitter. I highly recommend that you all do. And I hope that we can rack your brains once again sometime in future for advice for these future professionals. Thanks a lot, Alex.
I'm always here. You can always find me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and always happy to answer any questions you may have and be of any guidance.
Great. Thanks a lot, Alex. You have a great evening, and thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone.